Well, I hope y'all had a good weekend. Last week talked a lot about Kundalini awakening, the difference between an awakening and a shift in consciousness. And really, what I meant in terms of the shift in consciousness is we all vibrate at a specific frequency most of the time. Like we have a core emotion that we return to again and again, and this is a scale. The scale of consciousness was developed by David Hawkins in his book Power versus Force, and it basically looks like this here. It has, you can see the lower vibrational energies up to the higher vibrational energies, very much like our chakra system works. And then this is the list of the various emotions that are associated with those frequencies. So I'm going to be going over those, be covering those in the next couple of IGTV videos. And I wanted to just talk about the first three, the bottom three, which is shame, guilt, and apathy. Now, shame is, that's, now, first off, it's the lowest vibrational energy that you can have as a human. Anything lower than that, and you're not vibrating at all. You're dead, emotionally dead, catatonic, whatever, physically dead even. And this is the realm of people who have who are suffering from abuse, or suffering from children that are suffering from neglect, or have been rejected by their parents, abandoned. It's the realm where a lot of people who either attempt or are considering suicide reside in. This is this, like, it doesn't get worse than. And again, this doesn't mean that these individuals never have days when they're happy. It's not that they don't have any other emotions. It's that the primary emotion, where the brain goes again and again and again and again, where the thoughts are all about events that have happened in the past, more than likely have happened to them, and these are events that they didn't have a say in, or felt like they couldn't control, but yet there's still a lot of shame involved in that, in terms of, like, maybe they could have done something, maybe they did something wrong, maybe they could have done something different, maybe they could have affected a different outcome. So when we have this shift in consciousness, what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about, what David Hawkins is referring to as well, is when we no longer reside, or have the majority of the time when our energy is way down here in shame. And if you look at this scale of consciousness, it goes from 1 to 1,000, 1,000 being the highest. That's the state of pure enlightenment, pure consciousness. And that's from 1 to 20 on this scale right here. 1 to 20 is shame, and then guilt, and then apathy. So when we move up the scale from shame to guilt, basically we stop having, or we, yeah, the no desire to live any longer gets less and less and less. We still have feelings of worthlessness, or being unable to forgive ourselves for the things that happened in the past, but we're no longer living in that feeling of shame. Like, we realize that there is a something that can happen beyond this. We can move on, if you will. Most of the people that I described when I was talking about shame really need to have some form of therapy in order for them to be able to move beyond shame. I know I was one of those individuals many years ago, and still dealing from time to time with the residual effects of what that's like. But when you get into guilt, it's that it's that feeling like you're no longer ashamed of yourself because of what happened, but you still feel that kind of that guilty feeling, or again, like maybe you could have done something, or maybe you should have done something, but it's no longer that, why did this happen to me? I'm a piece of poo, whatever. Then we move up. We have another shift in consciousness, and this is what a lot of people confuse as an awakening when they have this shift in consciousness. Because what happens when you have the shift of consciousness, your thoughts are no longer going where they used to go, and so you begin to feel emotions. You begin to feel things that you didn't feel as often. You start feeling those things more often. So when we move up from guilt to the next level, which is apathy, and these are all the emotions that are down in our root chakra. When our root chakra is blocked or it's not in balance, these are the types of emotions that we might feel. At apathy, you stop feeling that worthlessness or hopelessness, but you start just feeling this overall sense of despair, like nothing matters. A lot of people who are homeless live in apathy, right? They don't feel that there's anything they can do to make their life better. They're no longer feeling the guilt of it. They've just kind of moved into this, whatever happens kind of world. It's a numbness to the world around them. And just like this unwillingness to accept their situation. Can people that are homeless pull themselves out? Yes. Has that happened in the past? Definitely it's happened in the past. So it is possible. It does, again, it takes work. It takes that willingness to take those steps. It's that willingness to do the work, to begin to rebuild yourself, if you will, from these states. People that are oppressed for most of their lives, they live in countries, very oppressive governments and whatnot. They don't feel like they have any sense of hope. They live in deep states of poverty. These are people that can live primarily, again, we're talking about where your primary emotional state is, where your thoughts tend to dwell, where your memories are, your vision of the future, all of that. In apathy, it's kind of like you're flatlined. You don't have the shame, you don't have the guilt, but there's really no sense of moving forward, right? You're just kind of trapped. So these are all the contracted emotional states. And as we go up the scale, we'll start looking at more of the expanded states. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about grief, fear, and desire. And these then get us into the next two chakras, get into the sacral chakra and the solar plexus chakra. And how do we move beyond? How do we get from apathy, from not caring at all, into the next level, the next state, which is grief? And I'm also going to talk about, there's two major blocks in terms of moving up the scale from down in the depths of shame all the way into more enlightened states. There's two blocks that can happen, and we'll also talk later about the percentage of people that never reach these enlightened states, and really what it takes in order to become more of an enlightened being, or have more enlightened thoughts. All right? I'll talk with you guys all later. Message me any questions you have about this stuff. I know it's kind of deep, but it's extremely important to understand this, especially if you are on a path to enlightenment. It's really important to identify where you are on the scale of consciousness, and I highly recommend that you read that book, Power versus Force. Talk to you soon.